fellow Americans.
You might be wondering, why in the world is there a 30-minute countdown before the show starts? Well, we actually start live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, so this whole 30-minute countdown is a chance for YouTube and Rumble to send out their alerts and notifications, so we encourage you to gather up and hang out with everyone in the chat room. So every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time is when we do this show live. You can join us for the countdown if you like, or just set your clock and reminder that at 4 p.m. Eastern is when we go live. You can also make sure you subscribe and turn on that bell notification, so hopefully you will get a notification.
What do you have to say about dictators of countries like Indonesia, who we sell weapons to, yet they are slaughtering people in East Timor? What do you have to say about Israel, who is slaughtering Palestinians, who impose martial law? What do you have to say about that? Those are our allies. Why do we sell weapons to these countries? Why do we support them? Why do we bomb Iraq when it commits similar problems?
There are various examples of things that are not right in this world, and the United States is trying. I really am surprised that people feel that it is necessary to defend the rights of Saddam Hussein, when what we ought to be thinking about is how to make sure that he does not use weapons of mass destruction.
I'd like to...
Who are shouting? Just a moment.
I'm not defending him in the least. What I am saying is that there needs to be consistent application of U.S. foreign policy. We cannot support people who are committing the same violations because they are political allies. That is not acceptable. We cannot violate UN resolutions when it is convenient to us. You're not answering my question, Madam Albright.
You briefed the press, did you not, when you were there?
Well, I had several jobs. One of my jobs was that of analyst. I also was an interrogator and indeed briefed the press when we, the CIA, wanted to circulate disinformation on a particular issue. Disinformation is not necessarily a lie. It may be a half-truth. And we would pick out a journalist. I would go do the briefing and hope that he would put the information in print.
What was your percentage of success?
We were pretty successful in planting information of a rather rarefied nature. For instance, if we wanted to get across to the American public that the North Vietnamese were building up their force structure in South Vietnam, I would go to a journalist and advise him that in the past 6 months, X number of North Vietnamese forces had come down the Ho Chi Minh Trail system through southern Laos. Now, there is no way a journalist can check that information. That's data derived from radio intercepts, spy in the sky photography. So either he goes with the information or he doesn't, and ordinarily or usually, the journalist would go with it because it looked like some kind of exclusive. Go after these gentlemen. I would be directed to cultivate them, to spend time with them at the Caravel Hotel or the Continental Hotel, to socialize with them, and slowly but surely to try to gain their confidence by dolloping out valid information which was true. And then I would drop into a conversation the data that we wanted to get across, which might not be true. One piece of data, for instance, that we managed to plant in the New Yorker magazine had to do with a supposed North Vietnamese effort in 1973 to develop airfields along the border of South Vietnam. The reason we wanted to plant this information was that we were trying to persuade the U.S. Congress that Saigon should continue to get a great deal of aid and that the North Vietnamese were the chief violators of the ceasefire accord. That was printed in the New Yorker magazine under the byline of Robert Chaplin, as indeed was a great deal of such information which we tried to circulate.
Frank, a two-part question. What were the objectives of or what was the objective of the CIA? What about the moral implications of what you were doing in feeding disinformation? Did the objective override the moral implications, moral problems?
Well, the objective of the agency in general is to generate intelligence and get it back to Washington, to get at the truth and make sure the policymakers understand it. When you plant disinformation, you are diverging from that objective, and I think probably in retrospect, it was very counterproductive. I am, as an ex-CIA agent, opposed to the disinformation activities in which I was involved. I admit that I was involved, and I think it served no useful purpose. Propagandizing the American public or Congress is not the CIA's job. As to the morality of what the CIA was doing or that particular activity, the war was a very relative thing. It was a relativist environment, and morality seldom came into play when you were operating in the field. In my estimation, a CIA man should be amoral. That may sound pretty shocking to somebody, but what if my morality were that of a Nazi or agent, if you will? You wouldn't want me to be your intelligence officer. Keep the morals out of intelligence. Keep the truth in, and stay away from disinformation.
It would have been more appropriate for Mr. Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, to address this House according to Article 144, an article which was specifically designed to debate violations of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, which is clearly the case with Mr. Trudeau. Then again, a Prime Minister who openly admires the Chinese basic dictatorship, who tramples on fundamental rights by persecuting and criminalizing his own citizens as terrorists just because they dared to stand up to his perverted concept of democracy, should not be allowed to speak in this House at all. Mr. Trudeau, you are a disgrace for any democracy. Please spare us your presence. Thank you.
And it might sound radical, colleagues, but the answer to war is not more war, it's peace. And peace isn't delivered by the barrel of a gun, it's delivered by diplomacy, by dialogue. You can wish away your continent's history, but we share a continent with Russia. We will sit down with Russia. There will be a negotiated peace, and this organisation should be promoting it earlier rather than delaying it and making sure that more Ukrainians die. Your feigning of sympathy rings hollow. It makes me sick, to be honest with you.
We become involved when disinformation poses a threat to the security of our country. It is when there's a connectivity to a threat to our country. It could be a threat, a connectivity to violence. And what this working group does, is precisely what I would think you would want it to do, which is to take a look at the work, the disinformation work that our department has done, and ask the following questions. Do we have policies? Do we have guardrails? Do we have standards?
But here's the problem.
Enforce?
We can't even agree. We can't even agree what disinformation is. You can't even agree that it was disinformation, that the Russians fed information to the Steele dossier. If you can't agree to that, how are we ever going to come to an agreement on what is disinformation so you can police it on social media?
Senator, I have 2 points, if I may finish. Number one, that what this office, what this working group does, because it's not an office, what this working group does is ensure that there are guardrails definitions, standards to make sure that the free speech rights, the civil rights, civil liberties, and privacy rights of individuals
So
are
do you
not
think
impinged.
do you think
Number
COVID
one.
do you think
And number
COVID
two,
do you think COVID
if I may,
do you think COVID disinformation threatens our national security?
And number two, if I may, Senator, and number two, is it your proposition that when the cartels spread disinformation with respect to our immigration policies to try to lure vulnerable migrants to our border illegally?
I think you've got no idea what disinformation is, and I don't think the government's capable of it. Do you know who the greatest propagator of disinformation in the history of the world is? The U.S. government. Are you familiar with McNamara, the Pentagon Papers? Are you familiar with George W. Bush and the weapons of mass destruction? Are you familiar with Iran-Contra? I mean, think of all the debates and disputes we've had over the last 50 years in our country. We work them out by debating them. We don't work them out by the government being the arbiter. I don't want guardrails. I want you to have nothing to do with speech. You think we can't determine, speech by traffickers is disinformation? You think the American people are so stupid they need you to tell them what the truth is? You can't even admit what the truth is with the Steele dossier. I don't trust government to figure out what the truth is. Government is largely disseminating disinformation.
You would know this this is a bit of an aside, but in terms of how you think about problem sets, when I was a cadet, what's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire training courses.
We had a good discussion on ensuring global energy security and adequate oil supplies to support global economic growth, and that will begin shortly. I'm doing all I can to increase the supply for the United States of America, which I expect to happen. The Saudis share that urgency, and based on our discussions today, I expect we'll see further steps in the coming weeks.
Are you worried about
Hey everyone, just as a reminder, our show starts at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, just a few minutes from now, but I should remind you that we have a daily newsletter. It's totally free. Natalie and I work very hard on it every morning over a cup of coffee, putting the stories together that we think are important that the mainstream media is going to ignore. All you need to do is go to our website. It's just redacted.inc. Put in your email address. We won't ever sell your email to anybody. And then you'll receive a welcome email. And all you need to do is verify that email, and 7 a.m. Eastern Time is when we send out our daily newsletter. And it's about 5 or 10 minutes in length that you can read it over your cup of coffee. And like I said, we cover 4 or 5 of the big stories of the day, plus a couple of things you might have missed while you were sleeping. We try to have some fun with it, add a little humor into it. And again, it's a great way to start off your morning. But it's also a great way for us to stay connected with you as well, because we've been banned and blocked on some of these platforms before, where we haven't been allowed to post anything, not even a community post. So the only way for us to stay connected with you is through our newsletter. We were able to send out a newsletter and say, hey everyone, we're blocked for the next week, and let you know what was actually going on with our show. Anyway, go to redacted.inc and sign up for the free newsletter, and it'll be posted first thing in the morning over your cup of coffee.
One of the hopeful things that I've discovered is that nearly every war that has started in the past 50 years has been a result of media lies. The media could have stopped it if they had searched deep enough. If they hadn't reprinted government propaganda, they could have stopped it. But what does that mean? Well, that means basically populations don't like wars. And populations have to be fooled into wars. Populations don't willingly and with open eyes go into a war. So if we have a good media environment, then we'll also have a peaceful environment.
You killed a million people in Iraq.
That is a separate...
You killed a million people in Iraq. It's incredible that you have the brass neck to be sitting here now urging another Iraq war
George,
after
if
what
I
we've
was
already
still in
done.
Parliament,
There can be no doubt that Saddam Hussein has biological weapons and the capability to rapidly produce more, many more. And he has the ability to dispense these lethal poisons and diseases in ways that can cause massive death and destruction. If biological weapons seem too terrible to contemplate, chemical weapons are equally chilling. UNMOVIC already laid out much of this, and it is documented for all of us to read in UNSCOM's 1999 report on the subject. If we consider just one category of missing weaponry, 6,500 bombs from the Iran-Iraq war, UNMOVIC says the amount of chemical agent in them would be in the order of 1,000 tons. These quantities of chemical weapons are now unaccounted for. Dr. Blick says, quipped that, quote, mustard gas is not marmalade. You are supposed to know what you did with it. We believe Saddam Hussein knows what he did with it, and he has not come clean with the international community. We have evidence these weapons existed. What we don't have is evidence from Iraq that they have been destroyed or where they are. That is what we are still waiting for.
Okay, inspection worth doing, everybody's agreed it's worth doing, and it gets stopped.
Yes, sir.
At that moment, we're an automatic pilot as far as you're concerned. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, I respect that. But now, it seems to me the Secretary of State might have a slightly different problem. Secretary of State might be sitting there and saying, now look over there on that side. Now, I remember so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and the 12 people on this side, they're all the ones that said they didn't want to use force. Now, I'm going to have to go tell the president now that we should, or Secretary Cohen, unleash whatever it takes to get it done. And our military assessment is the same as the majors. The majors' assessment is, privately held but publicly acknowledged later, that airstrikes alone aren't going to do this. Saddam's not going to cave on this. So, now here's the deal. I recommended the president have at it and let the chips fall where they may. A reasonable position for the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State to take. But I respectfully suggest, Major, I respectfully suggest they have a responsibility slightly above your pay grade. Slightly above your pay grade. To decide whether or not to take the nation to war alone, or to take the nation to war partway, or to take the nation to war halfway. That's a real tough decision. That's why they get paid the big bucks. That's why they get the limos and you don't. I mean this sincerely. I'm not trying to be flip, because I think, and that's why I said at the outset, the reason why I'm glad you did what you did, we should come to our milk. We should make a decision. But in terms of whether the Secretary of State has no more to consider than you do as the arms inspector, you didn't get in, didn't get my job done, get me in. Period. You made the deal, right? That's the deal. A deal's a deal. Get me in. Scott Ritter, I'm ready to go. It's not how it works. Now, maybe it should work that way. But wouldn't you acknowledge that if you were President of the United States or the Secretary of State, you'd sit there and say, now, okay, old Scotty boy didn't get in. We said he should get in. We want him to get in. It's important that he does get in. They're not going to let him in, so what are we going to do now? We know that France and Russia aren't going to be with us. We're quite confident China's not. We've already run those traps. They're not there. We're not sure where the United States Senate is, but have at it, boys. Go get them. And by the way, Scott and the boys say air power's not enough. I think it's a legitimate debate, Scott, Major. I think it's a legitimate debate. But I don't think we should be putting it in the context of, you have somebody up there at state saying, look, how can we weasel out of this agreement? We want to let this guy out there hanging. We're not this. It's a very practical political decision. Same kind of decision General Powell made. Same kind of decision President Bush made. Every president, every Secretary of State has to do it. Like I said, they get paid more than you. Their job's a hell of a lot more complicated than yours. They may have made the wrong decision, and you brought it to light. We should address it. We should say straight up where we are, and we should do it. And for that, I thank you. But it's above your pay grade.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in and talk to me a second." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." I said, "We're going to war with Iraq? Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper. He said, "I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
Hey everyone, Clayton here. The show is going to start at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I should remind you that we have a VIP community. It's our Redacted Rebel VIP community. Now, this show is totally free, what you're watching right now, right? You can subscribe here on YouTube and Rumble, totally free. But if you'd like to support independent journalism, we are run by you. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do this show. We wouldn't be able to hire the team that we have. We wouldn't be able to afford the servers that we have. We wouldn't be able to afford the reporters that we have, the team that we have. So you can support us by going to redacted.inc, and on the right side of your screen, you'll see a VIP community button. Just click that, and for the price of a cup of coffee once a month, you can support us. We put out exclusive content, early interviews that no one else will see, live streams just for our VIP Rebel community. So again, it's totally free to watch this show, but if you do want to support independent journalism, we would really appreciate it. Come on over to redacted.inc, click on that community button, and decide if you want to sign up or not. It's totally up to you. We thank you. And meanwhile, the show will start in just a few moments at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Well, one of the 4 principal functions of the CIA is to gather intelligence and ideally forward it to the president, the users of information, the policymakers, as they say. There are other functions, however, some of them more legitimate than others. One is to run secret wars, the covert action that's written and talked about so much, like what's happening in Nicaragua today from Honduras. Another thing is to disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds, and this is a major function of the CIA. And unfortunately, of course, it overlaps into the gathering of information. You have contact with a journalist, you will give him true stories, you'll get information from him, you'll also give him false stories. For example, in my war, the Angola war that I helped to manage, 1/3 of my staff was propaganda. Ironically, it's called covert action inside the CIA. Outside, that means the violent part. I had propagandists all over the world, principally in London, Kinshasa, and Zambia. We would take stories which we would write and put them in the Zambia Time, and then pull them out and send them to a journalist on our payroll in Europe. But his cover story, you see, would be that he'd gotten them from his stringer in Lusaka, who had gotten them from the Zambia Time. We had the complicity of the government of Zambia, Kenneth Kaunda, if you will, to put these false stories into his newspapers. But after that point, the journalists, Reuters and AFP, the management was not witting of it. Now, our contact man in Europe was, and we pumped just dozens of stories about Cuban atrocities, Cuban rapists. In one case, we had the Cuban rapists caught and tried by the Ovimbundu maidens who had been their victims, and then we ran photographs that made almost every newspaper in the country of the Cubans being executed by the Ovimbunda women who supposedly had been their victims.
These were fake photos?
Oh, absolutely. We didn't know of one single atrocity committed by the Cubans. It was pure, raw, false propaganda to create an illusion of communists, eating babies for breakfast and that sort of totally false propaganda.
The only reason that I'm allowed to ask you this question is because today the federal court ruled that the government doesn't have the right to determine who is or is not a journalist. This is the second election in a row that the court had to overturn your government. Do you still insist on being able to make that decision, and why?
First of all, questions around accreditation were handled by the press gallery and the consortium of networks who have strong perspectives on quality journalism and the important information that is shared with Canadians. The reality is organizations like yours that continue to spread misinformation and disinformation on the science around vaccines, around how we're going to actually get through this pandemic and be there for each other and keep our kids safe, is part of why we're seeing such unfortunate anger and lack of understanding of basic science. And quite frankly, I won't call it a media organization, your group of individuals need to take accountability for some of the polarization that we're seeing in this country. And I think Canadians are cluing into the fact that there is a really important decision we take about the kind of country we want to see. And I salute all extraordinary, hardworking journalists that put science and facts at the heart of what they do and ask me tough questions every day, but make sure that they are educating and informing Canadians from a broad range of perspectives, which is the last thing that you guys do.
Whatever our hopes may be for the future, for reducing this threat or living with it, there is no escaping either the gravity or the totality of its challenge to our survival and to our security. A challenge that confronts us in unaccustomed ways in every sphere of human activity. This deadly challenge imposes upon our society two requirements of direct concern, both to the press and to the President. Two requirements that may seem almost contradictory in tone, but which must be reconciled and fulfilled if we are to meet this national peril. I refer first to the need for far greater public information, and second, to the need for far greater official secrecy. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
1, go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome into Redacted on this Tuesday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And on this show, we cover the stories the corporate media largely ignores. We try to get to the truth. We don't have all the answers, but thank you for joining us on this journey as we seek the truth together outside of the propaganda machine that is being thrown at you every day. We've got a lot of stories we're going to cover tonight on the show. We're going to actually go to Azerbaijan, of course, where there is violence unfolding and where we're hoping to avoid a genocide. Basically an ethnic cleansing of those 80,000 Armenians that are trapped inside of that region and trying to get out right now, trying to get back to Armenia. Patrick Lancaster is there with violence that unfolded this afternoon, so we will cover that. We're also going to look at the border invasion throughout Europe because it is a disaster. I mean, Europeans are really, really scared right now about the hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants that are set to cross the border, both in Europe and, of course, in the United States, also dealing with that. So we'll talk about that.
Plus, we're going to look at the military expansion in the Pacific, which we've been warning about, and now the Biden administration confirms. Plus, a couple of companies, interestingly enough, have sort of thrown in the towel on their green initiatives, admitting that it would make things worse. We're going to look at this because I think we're going to see this domino effect where companies love to issue press releases about their green initiatives and then are forced to say, this is not better. So maybe this is a turning of the tide in climate rhetoric. I'm hoping that's the case. Let us know what you think.
Although this isn't the company you're talking about. This afternoon before the show, Volkswagen announced that they're shutting down production in two of their main EV plants for electric vehicles.
Ford did the exact same thing. We're going to look at that a little bit closer as well. So all that and more as Redacted starts right now. What are you laughing about?
I love my wife. She texts me because she's worried the microphones were on, and she's like, "You look really pale. You look really pale." I'm like, "I know. I feel pale. I feel like
got
shit.
A little bit of a virus.
I feel like shit. That's why."
And it may be because I signed him up on the barbecue at the school picnic this
welcome
weekend.
Back picnic, and
I was like, "You're taking a volunteer job," and then he comes home with a stomach bug. And then we sat down at the show, and I look at him most of the day, but I looked on the camera, and I was like,
"Pale? Do I look pale?"
You're looking a little Dracula, honey.
Well, hey, it's Halloween time, so Dracula would be great. Maybe that's what I should go as this year. I'll go as Dracula. Hey, good to see everyone. Thank you guys so much for subscribing, being a part of our show. Great to see all of you over on Rumble as well. We've got nearly 415,000 followers on Rumble, a free speech platform. So please support our Rumble platform. Really, that is... It is an island in a sea of propaganda and censorship right now is Rumble. So thank you guys for supporting us there. And of course, we are still streaming on YouTube for as long as that happens. But we are here. Good to see everyone.
I had several people reach out to me on Twitter today saying that they are being unsubscribed from our newsletter, unsubscribed from our show on YouTube, and the newsletter being put in the trash, even though they have dragged it over to the inbox several times. What? We hear this, you guys, because we know that we have a very inconvenient rhetoric right now, which is just truth. Our rhetoric here is truth.
Yeah, I saw in the newsletter. So we have a daily newsletter. It's totally free and it's awesome. But I noticed in the analytics today, there was like a sudden wave of weirdness. No, it was a bunch of weirdness. And so anyway, and the same with YouTube. So David, you can speak to this, right? Because YouTube unsubscribes people. What the hell? What, they just decide you don't want to be, and they just unsubscribe you?
Yeah, they go through every month and they do what they call bot purging. But the thing is that most of the people that they purge are not bots. It's just their excuse, like, oh, we're just trying to police, bad accounts or whatever. So
garbage.
But people get caught up in it. So and it's funny because sometimes we'll say that and people are like, not everything is a conspiracy theorist or theory redacted. Like, people aren't being unsubscribed, but it happens en masse every single month.
We hear from people all the time that it's happened. Go ahead, Philip.
I'll just say this. Like, I subscribe to several YouTube channels, Redacted being one of them, obviously. And I have never
in the entirety that I've been subscribed to Redacted, have I ever had a notification that you've uploaded anything or been live? Not once.
Even though you have notifications for our show turned on.
Exactly. Yep, I never received a notification for it.
And we kind of spend a lot of time on YouTube, so
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, we know how it works. Anyway, we do have a newsletter. Anyway, please subscribe to it. It's totally free. We cover a bunch of big stories in the morning. You know, maybe they'll tell you that it's conspiracy theories or whatever. I don't know, but who the hell cares? Go to redacted.inc and subscribe. You'll receive a welcome email. You have to confirm that you want to receive the email, and then you'll receive the newsletter tomorrow morning. We publish it Monday through Thursday. We cover a lot of the big stories, some of which we'll talk about here on the show. Others that we're covering, things you might have missed while you were sleeping, cover some market updates. We have you take our community poll, and you can literally read it in about 5 minutes over your cup of coffee. We hope we bring you a lot of value. It's totally free, but it's our way to stay connected with you because these platforms loves to censor independent media. So redacted.inc is the place to go and subscribe to the newsletter. So thank you for that. By the way, before we get started here, we got some breaking news this afternoon. We got word that the U.S. funded fraudster Navalny just had his appeal rejected by the Moscow court. He's currently serving a 19-year prison sentence for fraud.
Yes.
And by the way, if you want to read
a prison sentence he originally had agreed not to serve, the Russian government allowed him to serve it outside of prison as a mutual agreement. But then he decided to go gallivanting around Europe and break his bail terms.
Yeah, so he broke his bail terms. If you want to read all about the fake poisoning story of Navalny, read Jacques Baude's amazing book on this. It's short, it's like 100 pages, but it's specifically on this topic called Navalny by Jacques Baude. Read it. It's an amazing eye-opener, especially if you're swimming in the propaganda of Navalny. Anyway, just wanted to bring that up because we got that bit of breaking news this afternoon.
Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
I mean, but
there.
What's going to happen is that the rhetoric around him as this hero of Russia is going to be raised again when really people outside of the cities don't know him. He has about a 2 to 3% approval rating inside of Russia. And furthermore, he's more of a communist than Putin is. Putin's main opposition party is a communist party. And so that is Navalny. Navalny also does not want to return Crimea to Ukraine. So he is not this hero that they tell you he is inside
read
of Russia.
up on him if you'd like to. But anyway, interesting moves this afternoon. Okay, let's talk about this border invasion because the surge of illegal immigrants has reached new daily records. These numbers are unbelievable. And like if you don't live in these towns, you're probably sitting there going, it's like when someone doesn't live in a hurricane path. And they're like, wow, and they're flipping on the Weather Channel. They're like, wow, look at that. That looks bad. For the people that are living in these communities, it's absolutely terrifying. And by the way, it's not just going to stay in those communities anymore. It's absolutely traveling all over Europe and all over the United States. So first, let's talk about Europe. Then we'll talk about the U.S. overnight. So how did it get this bad, you might be asking? That's what a lot of Europeans and Americans are asking themselves as they stare down the hundreds of illegal immigrants pouring across their borders. The corporate media is largely silent on this issue, totally silent, actually. So to understand some context here, let's rewind the clock a little bit, back to March of 2023. So just a short time ago, mayors and interior ministers in cities all across Europe warned that their cities were going to collapse if illegal immigrants continued to flood their streets. It was an invasion, they said. This was, here you can read this article here, Europe looks to beef up border security as illegal migration surges. Did that happen? The latest, no, it didn't. No, it didn't. In fact, as the article points out, the latest surge in illegal migration has prompted interior ministers across Europe to vow to finally hammer out a unified policy on migration, which has long been Europe's Achilles heel. So what happened? Well, the answer is virtually nothing happened. The EU made it worse by, in fact, speeding up the asylum-seeking time frame to 12 weeks. So you come across the border illegally, claim asylum for whatever reason you want, then Europe will take 12 weeks to approve or deny your request. They also made it so that European countries wouldn't be able to detain these people except in rare circumstances. Makes a lot of sense, right? How exactly is that working out for them? If it's not, in fact, because the message is basically just come on in. Just we're wide open, just come on in, because it's such a broad set of standards that anyone can get refuge, anyone can seek asylum, and it doesn't matter how you claim it. So they use vague rules about the asylum, and we can detain you. And by the way, we can't detain you, so you go just have some fun in our country. Under these detention rules, we can't detain you at all. You're here for 12 weeks, so here's some money. You have to be put up in nice hotels, and go take care. Go do what you're going to do. We'll probably never see you again. Welcome to Germany. How's that working out for Germany, by the way? How's it working out for Switzerland? It's not. Just look at Germany's economy. Look at how Germany is dealing with crime, rash of crime. Look at the rapes that are taking place across France. Headlines this morning in France about the number of elderly women being attacked and raped in France, thanks to illegal immigrants. Great. In 2022, Europe saw over 330,000 illegal immigrants arrive by boat and train. And in the spring of that year, already an 82% increase over last year. And they've done nothing to stop it. And now, today, we have this. Take a look at this. So this is Al Jazeera reporting that upwards of 500,000 people have gathered in northern Africa, ready to invade Europe, essentially. Maybe nothing will happen. Maybe all of these people that are, filing in by the giant semi-truck flatbeds are just going to hang out. Maybe they're all together to go to a Taylor Swift concert.
This is from Al Jazeera.
Mm-hmm. So in Spain last night, and by the way, we should also point out about this in Spain. In Spain last night, boats arriving on shore carrying illegals. Looks like soldiers landing on the beaches of Normandy when you see these images. Look at that. These are the first thoughts, too. That like, this is D-Day. It's like those Higgins boats that soldiers used on the beaches of Omaha Beach and so forth to attack Nazi positions.
Point out, like, where do you... I don't see any women or children yet. Like, why is it all men all of a sudden? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, military-age men. I've heard from multiple sources today, overwhelmingly, the train fulls, the cargo holds full, are military-age men. And I saw someone on Twitter, not interacting with me or anything like that, but just said, like, when did we start? Look, the boats are pulling back, and then they go and they load up more, and they're bringing them right back. So when did someone on Twitter said, well, when did we start using the insensitive term military-aged men? How about we just call them men? Okay. So, yeah, why don't we just do it? Why don't we make you feel better with the terminology? They're military-aged men.
Yeah, because when you say men, you would see men getting off the boat that needed help because they're old, or children like 7 to 12 getting off. But these are fit military-age men, and that means something. There's a reason people are calling it that.
Yes, but that's always been an immigrant pattern, is that, a working family would send the man to go and sort of figure out where they're going to live. Is there a job there? That's what the Chinese did largely when they came over to work. The men came, right? The women did not. Immigrants from Western Europe who came to the United States, the man would go first, make sure there was a job and a home, and then send for the family. So that's another, is that a prospect that these men would send back for their families? It's a valid question because there's so little known about these massive people.
And I apologize. Already, YouTube tonight has already limited our show, and I can see here that they've yellow flagged our show and already blocked it. So anyway, if you're not seeing this, that could be why. So please smash the like button. It pushes it further out into the algorithm, but it's kind of amazing. Like, we just started the show. We haven't even done anything yet. Oh my God, it's unbelievable. Anyway, so yeah, that was Spain last night. And then countries like Sweden and Germany have seen soaring sexual assault cases, with many perpetrators being immigrants who arrive illegally. This is well documented. Yet the mainstream media continues to downplay these issues and label anyone who dares speak out about this as a bigot. It's not bigotry to care about the safety and security of your own citizens. It's not bigotry to demand that your government, by the way, enforce its own laws that are on the books. Or you can have Obama come in and change them and label everyone dreamers, so you can sort of go around the laws and, we don't have laws on the books anymore. No, they're just labeled dreamers.
And no one's saying we want bad for those people. We're saying that must be scary to land on a beach and not know where you're going and not have anything to eat or anywhere to stay, right? And so that's not good for anybody. It's not good for the people who have migrated legally or who live there, and it's not good for those people who have to sit around on the sidewalk waiting for someone to give them something. It's not good for anybody. This is like a virtuous circle of terrible.
And they've also, by the way, created a system that rewards this kind of behavior, who break the law, and punishes those who just break it and don't follow it. That's really ridiculous. I mean, sorry, they punish those who do follow the law and have to wait in line, basically, right? Basically, skip the line and we will reward you and give you government benefits and take care of you. Go through the proper channels and you're screwed. They created a broad definition of asylum and fleeing political prosecution. You fleeing persecution? Use that word on your sign-up form and you're good to go. So that anyone coming in can claim asylum.
So easy for Syrians escaping the war or Libyans. They wait in long lines and are often rejected in Western countries. So when did that become a thing? It certainly wasn't a thing when we were busy destroying Middle Eastern countries and then not letting them in. So if we've changed that, it would be nice for us all to know.
Well, today, UK's Home Secretary admitted that multiculturalism has failed and Europe is facing an existential crisis because of illegal immigration. Watch.
Uncontrolled immigration, inadequate integration, and a misguided dogma of multiculturalism have proven a toxic combination for Europe over the last few decades. I'm not the first to point this out. In 2010, Angela Merkel gave a speech in which she acknowledged that multiculturalism had utterly failed. And then French President Nicolas Sarkozy and British Prime Minister David Cameron echoed similar sentiments shortly thereafter. Multiculturalism makes no demands of the incomer to integrate. It has failed because it allowed people to come to our society and live parallel lives in it. They could be in the society, but not of the society. And in extreme cases, they could pursue lives aimed at undermining the stability and threatening the security of our society.
I love Burn in Hell Biden, great screen name, by the way, on our Rumble chat, says, wow, no shit. But for some people, this is like a revelation. You needed to go through all of this disastrous influx of illegal immigrants, the total collapse of your society, violence, elderly women being raped in France, because that's happening, to finally wake up and realize this. Now, some might say, well, she, of course, is the parents of illegal immigrants from India who came to the UK, right? And upwardly mobile, she's there. She's the Home Secretary.
Of legal immigrants, or she's
legal. So this is the difference, right? This is when someone wants to throw that around, that, well, it's easy for her to say that is she admitting that it's a failure? She's the product of it. Well, is she, though? Because her parents went through normal
if
channels.
She's Indian, then also her culture was pillaged by the United Kingdom. And so they were given this, sort of
pathway,
corridor of immigration.
Hey, we destroyed your country. We pillaged it. We
made you
colonized
fan us at night when it was really hot, when we had British soldiers, taking all of your resources. So we owe you a little thing called passport.
That's true, by the way. Yeah, yes. we were forced to fan British soldiers in India while you were occupying us.
Throughout the night. Yeah. That was a job.
All night.
Slavery.
So she then called separately, the Home Secretary did, for rewriting of a treaty which has influenced global asylum policy for the last 7 decades. Good for her. Wow. Really? She did that today? This would be the biggest change to refugee laws in 70 years. Huge news from the UK. Let's see if anyone listens and actually does that. But it's this overly broad definition, of course, that Nigel Farage and others have been slamming. Just any definition you want. Come on in. Take our government resources. Rape our women. That's how it works. So to America now, I think it's going to get any better there, where we now have our August numbers that just have arrived. Close to 300,000 illegal immigrants poured across the borders into America in August. To put that in perspective, 300,000 was the number I just told you about that came to Europe throughout the entire year of 2022. So in 1 month, America, 300,000 illegal immigrants that came. That's what we know about, by the way. How many more we don't that weren't even cataloged properly that came across? I bet it's even much higher than that. And last night at Eagle Pass, Texas, a disaster, crisis emerging. The mayor declaring a state of emergency there because of these razor wire. This razor wire has been set up to block the flow of illegals that was cut by border agents to let people through. Yes, under Biden's direction, under the Customs and Border Protection, Texas DPS barbed wire barrier that was keeping the hordes of illegals out was cut wide open to allow them to flow right through. Here's how it played out last night live on television. Watch this.
In Eagle Pass, Texas, where just moments ago, Customs and Border Protection cut a hole through the concertina wire that has been stretched by Texas DPS along the border there to allow migrants to come through. It was initially a group of about 60 to 70 people. It swelled to some 300 very, very quickly. Some women and children who were sort of in the middle of the river were picked up by, I guess it would be Texas DPS, because they're running the airboats there up and down the river, and taken out of the water and to safer ground there. But as you can see, as we have watched for the last couple of weeks, the illegal migration across the river into the United States continues with this border crossing in Eagle Pass, seeing thousands of people. And then over the weekend, we set what we believe is a new record of 11,000 people crossing into the United States in a single day. We'll keep an eye on this for you. In the meantime,
yeah, we will. We'll keep an eye on it. 11,000 per day.
I mean, I can kind of understand like them not wanting to just let them sit there and die. They've got no food, they've got no water, so they would just be stuck there. But they should be working with Mexico, and Mexico should be taking some of this on because it's in their country or other places that it's happening.
No.
Like, nobody else is taking it on but us.
No. Mexico is helping, and it's all being funded by the United States. So, no, there's not going to be any stopping of it. The whole plan is working. The plan is working. Bus them in luxury buses up through Panama from the Darien Gap. We've showed it to you. We've showed it to you ad nauseum. Back-to-back buses on a regular rotation, driving them straight up right to, and Mexico then with police escorts driving them right to the border. So this is all part of the plan. Earlier today, I spoke with David Cannon. David is a business owner in Eagle Pass. His business has been ravaged by a wave of illegal immigration. And now, of course, of Governor Abbott trying to pretend to really clamp down on illegal border crossings, has been stopping all of these semi-trucks that are part of legitimate businesses, and they're searching them now, finally. But nevertheless, what they're doing is creating this enormous bottleneck. And then illegal immigrants all through Eagle Pass, just wandering the streets, ravaging businesses. David also flies a helicopter, and he's been taking out members of Congress to show them what's happening in Eagle Pass in that area, because these members of Congress aren't even getting access to information from the Biden administration. So he's very involved in what's happening in Eagle Pass. And he took a few moments today while he was in Austin to tell me what was going on with the illegal immigrants pouring in over the past 24 to 48 hours. Here is David. David, what is it like in Eagle Pass right now?
Right now, we have like a year and a half ago, we had people walking up and down the highway. About a year and a half ago, I guess Biden started putting them on buses. So, you know, the locals, at least one reason I think is the locals would not be so upset, because it was just thousands of people roaming the streets all hours of day and night. But now every single hour of every night and every day, there's buses that are leaving every 20 to 25 minutes. I'll see at least 2 or 3 bus loads come out of Eagle Pass every hour.
Now, you've got a business there in Eagle Pass. You also take people up in a helicopter, showing senators and members of Congress and others what it's like pouring across Eagle Pass. When you take up these members of Congress into your helicopter, what are they saying to you? Are they stunned, or they know that this is happening?
I got to know that they got to know basically it's happening, but maybe some of the details not. It's a different perspective than on the ground. But some of them are really concerned, and sheriffs and surrounding counties, you know, concerned, like Uvalde or Del Rio. But as well as surrounding counties and sheriffs and congressmen up around Houston, where a lot of them are ending up. But some of them don't seem as concerned, like it's not a crime or it's not against the law, so there's nothing we could do about it.
Your business, how has your business been affected?
Definitely, we try to get in 2 or 3 18-wheelers a day, like clockwork for 20 years, and now we can't. All last week, we couldn't get a load across. I finally got 2 or 3 loads across yesterday, but it takes, instead of 3 hours to cross, it takes 3 days to cross.
How would you describe what's been happening in Eagle Pass over the past few months?
Man, it's just a big money-making machine. I mean, I went to the processing center, and I guess you call it an NGO. I'm not sure. Somebody's getting a big contract, and they hire a bunch of kids that are just like out of high school that are processing these immigrants after they get handed to the camp by National Guard, and CBP and the helicopter will point them out if they're over here, groups over here, and they'll go pick them up. And that's what's been happening every single day, every day for the last few months. Actually, I think for the last year and a half.
What about when you walk down the streets of Eagle Pass? What are you seeing on the streets now?
2 years ago, before they really put them on planes and buses, they were all over the roads. I mean, you could leave Eagle Pass and almost hit out in the middle of the darkness coming this way, groups of 5 or 10. And occasionally in the small town of Batesville or La Pryor coming out of Eagle Pass, you would see a group of 5 or 6 being detained, set down, handcuffed, but then they're just being sent back to the buses to get on the way even further into the U.S.
Where are these buses going, David?
I thought about following one, but I know they're going at least as far as San Antonio. I suspect they're going to Dallas and San Antonio, but because a lot of the people that on one bus would tell me they're going to New York, or they're going to Georgia, or they're going to Oklahoma, or they're going to Dallas, or they're going to San Antonio. So they all got to be going at least as far as a common point of San Antonio.
But going into the United States. Yeah.
But absolutely. Everybody's going to a different state, mostly Florida. I mean, last week and this week, definitely last week, most people say they were going to Florida.
Wonder what Governor DeSantis thinks about that.
Yeah, I said he's going to have his hands full. And
yeah,
but yes, everywhere. They're going everywhere.
All right. Thank you so much, David, for joining us today from Texas. We appreciate you just giving us some idea what it's like in Eagle Pass. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, David. And I'm curious from our audience tonight, let us know, are you seeing a surge in illegal immigration in your area? I mean, we're seeing it in New York. We're seeing it in, we're seeing it in hotels in New York. We're seeing it all over the country. We're seeing it in California. We're seeing it in Denver, Colorado, particularly Chicago, Oklahoma City. So let us know, are you seeing a surge in this where you live? And let us know in the comments. Are you seeing it in Europe? I mean, how many of you are watching us from Europe right now? I just saw someone said hello from Norway. Scandinavian countries are being hit with this as well. Until these governments realize they've got to, someone's got to stand up and be brave about this, even though this is part of this plan. This replacement migration plan.
It feels anti-human. It feels like we're not even humans looking at other humans.
And someone said, what about the children? What about all the children? Yeah, today, in fact, Michael Yon sent me a text today. He said, this is one of the children. It's going to wind up in, Carlos sent me a text earlier today saying, this is one of the children. It's going to end up at one of these detention centers. It'll be probably sold off at that Walmart facility and sold off to somebody. For God knows what. They found I think they found a 5-month-old just laying there on the border, by barbed wire. And they just that's what they're dealing with. A 5-month-old just laying there. It's unbelievable to me. And no one was around. This is it's really unbelievable. So we've got more news to get to, though, here on your Tuesday. We're going to talk about what's going on in Armenia versus Azerbaijan and the violence that's unfolded over the past few hours there. Shooting has erupted as refugees have been attempting to flee. They've been shot at, and we'll show you that coming up in just a minute. But first,
we want to tell you about our friends over at Nom Nom, because if your pet is a member of your family, and they are, don't feed them like they're in the doghouse. Give them Nom Nom. Nom Nom delivers fresh dog food with every portion personalized. Would we use personalized for a dog or doganalized? I don't know. We'll think about that. To your dog's needs. Customized. Puppetalized. I don't know. I'll work on that and get back to you. So you can bring out their best. Nom Nom's made with real whole food that you can see and recognize without any additives or fillers that contribute to bloating or low energy. They have nutritionists and board certified veterinary nutritionists that will help them make insights into what your pet needs and make food specific to that dog's needs. Dog personalized. Nom Nom's already delivered over 40 meals to good dogs like yours, inspiring millions of clean bowls and wagging tails. Plus, Nom Nom comes with a money-back guarantee. So if your dog's tail isn't wagging within 30 days, Nom Nom will refund your first order. And, I know sometimes you're like, oh, I'm going to make my own pet food. My sister did that for a while because she didn't want to give the dog this processed food, that you get in the store, and the dog wouldn't eat it. So Nom Nom actually has a money-back guarantee in case you've got a fussy dog, and we've not heard of any dogs that sent their Nom Nom back. So right now you can get 50% off your no-risk 2-week trial at trynom.com/redacted. So check it out. Try TRYNOM nom, trynom.com/redacted.
Someone in the chat says, Nick says pupstomized.
There we go. That's
individualized.
Better.
Individualized. Yeah. I like that. Customized. Real beef.
Cananalized.
Yeah.
Cananalized.
All right. We're going to have fun with grammar now, guys, because we're going to look at videos of Joe Biden. Here we go. So get ready for U.S. military expansion in the Pacific Ocean. This is what the White House, or in the Pacific region, rather. This is what the White House is busy with this week. Here is Joe Biden announcing more investment in the Pacific.
So today I'm pleased to announce we're working with Congress to invest $40 billion in our Pacific Islands Infrastructure Initiative. We call it the PI anyway. It doesn't matter what we call it, but that's what it is. I was going to get back to acronyms, and I'm going to stand not doing that.
Okay, I'm going to have to say this again.
Correct it? It's an initialism?
It's not an acronym if you can't pronounce it as a word. That's an initialism.
Well, he can't pronounce anything.
Good point. And he probably would not understand this distinction, but PIN. PIN is an acronym. NASA, right?
All right.
FAQ, not an acronym. It's an initialism. Okay. So this, what are we calling it? PPII, Pacific Islands Infrastructure Initiative. There's only one P. I'm looking at it right now. PIII.
Okay.
Anyway, initialism. Okay. Also, it seems to me he got the number wrong because he's saying we're announcing 40 billion, but look at the White House press release. This is 40 million. At this point, does it even matter? So what they're saying here is that they have more 28 million and they're requesting another 12. That's 40 million for this PIII. That's not 40 billion. Am I missing some zeros? Do you see it there? Check my math. But I guess at this point, given that we're headed to a government shutdown, does it matter? Give a million, give a billion. It's printed on fake money. I guess it doesn't. Now, this military expansion is being done under the guise of climate change. Take a look here at what they're saying. Like, we need to invest more in the Pacific region because of the climate crisis. Note here this last thing that they say on the bottom. Actually, there's quite a few that they say about what they're going to do about the climate. But this one that I've noted, supporting maritime limits and boundaries. Well, we had one of those conflict. It seemed, conveniently timed because just today it was announced that the Philippine Coast Guard said that they sent a diver to cut a rope to remove a barrier that was reportedly installed by China to prevent entry into a disputed area. Now, here's the diver that they showed us. Here is said rope. These were, again, released images from the Philippine Coast Guard. It didn't look, I don't know. It just felt, like I said, a little bit conveniently timed. Here is some video of that diver going down. Now, we don't see the barge. We don't really see, all we see them is pulling up anchors and cutting rope. So we don't see any evidence of like disputed title. This just feels, let's go to the next one where the guy just sort of goes down and cuts her up. He doesn't even have any scuba gear or anything like that. So the Philippines says they're not going to move into, that they are going to move in this area now with military presence. And China is saying, no, you better not. We had the rights to that region. And so this border, so this is what the United States says it really needs to get involved in. This is one of the things that they're announcing. Now, this territory dispute that we have on our hands, it feels right on cue. But in the same breath, the U.S. has declared sovereignty for two new nations, the Cook Islands and Niue. This is where those places are located. They're not too far from New Zealand. Number 1 is New Zealand. Number 2 is Niue. And number 3 is the Cook Islands. The Cook Islands and Niue, until yesterday, were known as freely associated states to New Zealand. But China has already considered them to be sovereign. So I guess New Zealand is fine with sort of letting them come and go as they please. There was no official word on this in New Zealand, I guess, because China already felt this way. Bloomberg says, though, that this is a clear hit at China, and how can it not be, this military expansion by the United States? Because on the heels of this announcement comes the announcement of 2 new embassies. So I guess if you want allies in the Pacific region, you just create new countries and say, well, those people are independent now. We've declared it. So can I put some embassies there?
Well, I mean, to me, this is the biggest part of the story, right? Is that, where did this come from? It's all so mysterious. Like, why out of the blue are we now declaring that these countries are, that's a country. You're a country. It's like Oprah giving, you're a country. You're a country. Oh, and by the way, side note, since we declared that you're a country, we're going to have to put a military base.
Right.
Up in your backyard.
I mean, right now, yes, with embassies come military bases. Go ahead.
What does the new flag look like so I can put it on my Twitter profile? Just slap it. Is that our next?
That's our next cause to celeb. Yeah.
I'll look into it.
No, only if Putin invades it, then you can do it. We don't care about other countries, though, if Syria or anything like that.
Right. During World War II, there already was a U.S. military base on the Cook Islands, and undoubtedly there will be more now because we're sort of saying because of climate change, we need more U.S. presence in those areas, even though the military is responsible for most use of resources on the planet. But that inevitably will be followed by military presence for climate change. Got it? Does that make sense to you? One island in the Pacific, however, is not down for more U.S. military bases, Okinawa. Okinawa has asked the United Nations to stop the U.S. from relocating a military base on the island. This governor of Okinawa has asked the United Nations for help, but his own government of Japan does not really support him. They don't have his back. So what this is saying here is that he has drummed up international support to prevent this plan, but it's going to go forth anyway. And that most of the community is saying, please don't do this. We've had enough military presence here. We don't need this to be expanded. But they're going right ahead with it. Incidentally, if you'd seen Karate Kid 2, you know what it's like when those military bases in Okinawa invade and relocate entire villages. I know that's fiction, but it's a good insight to that. And also, we watched that with our kids this weekend. So if you are a Pacific...
It's also where Grimm was...
Go ahead.
Sorry, that's where Grimm was born. He was born in Okinawa.
He was born in Okinawa? I didn't know that.
Wow. Interesting. For those of you who don't know who Grimm is, Grimm does all of our graphics here on the show and is listening right now. Yes. That's amazing. I didn't know he was born in Okinawa.
I didn't know that either. Oh, I guess he is anytime Grimm is also a military veteran and he has great insights, but he only puts it on our group chat. So he doesn't say it to you live. I wish he would. So about Okinawa.
Yeah.
I was going to go on to a tangent about Karate Kid. I will not do that. Okay. I will avoid doing that. I guess the moral of the story is that if you're a Pacific Islander, you are going to get more American military presence, whether you like it or not, because climate change.
Yeah. All right, well, we've got more news to get to here on your Tuesday. We're going to talk about this WEF plan to ban meat and how that's going because, get ready to say goodbye to your meat. And bugs in food is showing up all over the place. And in fact, it might be in foods. What's that?
They're going to have to pry it out of my hands.
Your meat? Yeah. And me too. But it's coming, I'm telling you. And already the cities that are we're going to show you the American cities specifically that are targeting these massive meat reductions in grocery stores in order to hit these climate goals. So there's a number of major U.S. cities that have signed on to this. This is going to be a part of it. It's happening in Europe already. But bugs also infiltrating our food and on purpose. I know people think it's a conspiracy theory. Just go to your local convenience store and actually see how many items now have bugs in them that you don't even know about. It's actually really disgusting and staggering. We'll get to that in a second. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Moomoo. Because if you'd like to get 16 free stocks right now, you can just by signing up on our favorite trading platform. Go to redacted.inc/Moomoo today. Get up to 16 free stocks just for signing up. You can get a free Google stock or a Tesla stock when you open your account and make your initial deposits. Now, I use Moomoo every day to set alerts for different stocks that I trade, different commodities companies that I invest in, different minerals companies, uranium companies. Holy smokes, you guys know I've talked about uranium companies here on the show quite a bit over the past year, and just about every uranium company I've talked about on our show is now at an all-time high. And so setting those alerts and kind of tracking those companies has been amazing. So if you guys, when I was talking about those, if you guys held those stocks, you would have made a lot of money because they're all at an all-time high right now because of the prices of uranium. Anyway, but those alerts come right through on your Moomoo app. Very easy to set all of that stuff in your different markets that you're following, different stocks. But again, it's free. Go to redacted.inc/Moomoo, M-O-O-M-O-O, to get 16 free stocks when you open your account and set your initial deposits in your account. So our thanks to them for supporting the show. All right. Let's take you now to Armenia, where violence has unfolded over the past 48 hours, and specifically over the past few hours, as Azerbaijani troops and forces have now opened fire on refugees who've been trying to flee the area, of course, Artsakh, which has been held now and surrounded by Azerbaijani forces. What we're really concerned about, of course, is that a genocide could unfold inside that region, an ethnic cleansing of 80,000 Armenians who have been trapped there. That is the concern. And suddenly America is flying in, sending Susan Power in to prop up support for the government of Armenia and Pashinyan. So
Susan Power, the architect of the Syrian attacks.
Yeah, exactly. So when she's coming into town, you know shit's about to hit the fan. So Patrick Lancaster is in the heart of it all right now, watching as these refugees are trying to leave and being fired upon by these forces, and he filed this report just a short time ago.
Hello, Redacted. I'm Patrick Lancaster, and right now we are in the center of Goris, Armenia. Now, Goris, Armenia is the biggest border city bordering Armenia and what's internationally recognized as Azerbaijan, but is, however you want to call it, Republic of Artsakh, and now all the Armenian residents are being evacuated because it seems the Republic of Artsakh will be no more, and the Armenian residents have to flee for their lives. So right now we have the House of Culture here in the center, and it's being used as a makeshift first aid center, registration center, just general help for the long term for the refugees here. We see Red Cross on site. We see Armenian police. Here's a Red Cross member right here. Armenian police, Armenian military. There's a big effort here to help the refugees as they come from Nagorno-Karabakh, Republic of Artsakh, Azerbaijan, whatever you want to call it. Here are the facts on the ground. We're talking to the people, seeing exactly what the situation is, what's happened in Stepanakert, which is the capital of Republic of Artsakh. And unfortunately, last night there was a huge tragedy, and one of the few fueling stations that was set up to give a rationed amount of fuel to the refugees so they can escape and evacuate, there was an explosion. It's not exactly 100% clear what caused it, but the explosion is now reported to have injured over 270 people, killed at least 20, and there are still people missing. So people expect the number of killed to rise, of course, and unfortunately, right now, throughout the morning and day, there has been helicopters flying back and forth across the city of Goris, and we hope those are medevac helicopters bringing people from the tragedy in Stepanakert to a hospital to hopefully save their lives, because it said there's a lack of support in Stepanakert to help these people, of course, because there's been a blockade for so many months. There's a lack of medicine, a lack of fuel, a lack of food for these people, because Azerbaijan blockaded Artsakh for so long before they invaded last week. So this is the situation on the ground. We're going to be continuing showing you what we can. Now, let's take a look at the horrible explosion, just the video that was taken just after this explosion last night in Stepanakert. All right, so one thing that should be noticed, this flag right here is the Republic of Artsakh flag. They seem to put it up just for these refugees here. The flag over the administration building is the Armenian flag, of course, but this is the Republic of Artsakh flag. All right, so you see another helicopter right above me here. I just wanted to make a point to show you that these helicopters are just keep coming. So it seems like there's active evacuations by medevac going on from Stepanakert to here, evacuating the victims of the tragedy last night when the gas station exploded. So we're going to bring you all the information we can. Keep bringing you updates. We're going to bring you a film and bring you everything here on the ground. Can you tell us what's happening here right now?
So right now we have refugees coming in from Artsakh, as we know they've been in a blockade for 10 months now. Just a couple of days ago, I think it's the fourth day now, the third day actually, they've been allowed out of Artsakh, so they've been coming in buses and buses. The first day was about 1,000 people, and then every day there's a bit more and more. So what we have here now is the community centre, where they're coming straight off the bus to, we're in Goris now, which is the second town after you pass the border into Armenia. And so the people are coming off the buses straight here, and they are just giving their names, letting them know who they are, so they know who's left and who's here. And after that, we have set up a tent over here where we are providing them with basic essentials. There's food, they can have a hot meal, they can have a cold meal, and there's also clothes on the way. It's coming if they've left anything behind that they don't have on them right now. We have that ready for them as well. And yeah, that's what's happening here at the moment. And yeah.
Okay, and where is the financing coming from all this?
There's a lot of us. So I'm from Australia myself. In our team, there's people from Armenia, there's people from America and Canada. So what we're doing is messaging our family, messaging our friends. What we're doing is collecting funds from there, showing them the situation here with videos and photos and live updates and live on Facebook, and showing them the situation. A lot of them are already aware. A lot of the Armenians in the diaspora are already aware, but then they are also spreading the news to non-Armenians, and the non-Armenians are willing to donate, willing to help. We are also putting our own funds in as well if we need to, and yeah, that's how the funds are coming for this. Yeah.
Okay, and if somebody wants to donate, how and where can they do it?
So we are under the organisation of All for Armenia, seen on my shirt over here. They've been operating since the 2020 Artsakh war. So they have a donation link via their website, but also because we have diasporians here, it's a little bit quicker. If we have an Australian bank account, someone sends it from Australia to an Australian bank account, we'll have direct access and quick access to the funds. Same with an American bank account to another American bank account. Otherwise, internationally, wherever they're from, they can donate via the All for Armenia website.
Okay.
And all their updates are also posted on there as well.
Okay, great. And can I ask you, what, in your words, has been happening over the last week in Artsakh?
So, as an Armenian, it's very emotional, very hard. We have family and friends in Artsakh, and it's hard to put it into words, really. It's half of me is glad that they're safe, finally somewhere safe, somewhere they can get food, somewhere where they're not deprived of something. But it's also very sad they've had to leave somewhere that they've lived their whole life, set up their whole life, and have to come and restart from, if not scratch, then almost scratch.
What do you believe would have happened if the Armenians, the ones that have already left and the ones that are there, if they do not leave when Azerbaijan controls Artsakh? What would happen?
I don't even want to think about that. They've spoken about integration and stuff, and we've seen the brutality from Azerbaijan. They are cruel, they are violent. I don't even want to think about what they would do if some Armenians stay behind. So we just, personally, everyone has a different opinion, but personally I want our Armenians safe with us over here. We'll provide them with what they need and help as much as we can. But I understand if they do want to stay, but I just don't even want to think about that situation.
Understand. And about the tragedy last night at the fuel station.
That was very upsetting. Very upsetting. We were up all night, couldn't get some sleep. Just our minds were there, trying to get in contact with people that we know, trying to get in contact with people that know who was there or whatnot. That was very sad. It's also very suspicious, in my opinion, again. Very suspicious. That fuel, from what we know, that gas was sent from Azerbaijan themselves. If that was planned, if that wasn't planned, I can't speak on that. We don't know that information yet, but it is very suspicious. They're trying to get out of there, they're trying to catch a break, and something like that happens. It's not something someone would do on purpose. Mm-hmm. It's not something that like an Armenian would do on purpose.
Understand. And can you just briefly introduce yourself, who you are and what you do?
My name is Saro Tahanyan. I am born in Australia. I'm obviously Armenian. Speak Armenian at home with my parents. I went to an Armenian school in Australia. There's one big one in Sydney, which is where I'm based. But I've been coming back to Armenia every year, almost every year, since 2011. Well, I came here for the first time in 2011. I fell in love. I met my cousins. I met my family here, and I've been back every year since. It's just a place that I want to be. It's where my heart is, and a whole lot of me is my personality is based around being Armenian.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
No problems. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Patrick, for that report from Armenia. By the way, a bunch of people are asking here in the chat room, what was the name of the website that the young man just mentioned? And we pinned it on YouTube. Rumble does not allow you to pin it, but the website is allforarmenia.org. So if you've got relatives who are Armenian or you want to support this, absolutely. But anyway, that was the website that young man recommended as a place for donations. So allforarmenia.org, and we just pinned it on our YouTube chat. I don't think we can do that on Rumble, but people were asking, and so that's the name of the website. So you can go there and learn more about it. I
did post it on Rumble, but you can't pin.
Okay. Good to know. Just tragic. And of course, when he was asked, what do you think could happen to those 80,000 or so that are trapped there? He's like, I don't even want to think about that. That's what the big concern is, of course, another ethnic cleansing. And we hope that that's not what's going to happen. So we'll keep our eye on what's happening there. It's a very, very important story, and we'll watch it closely. All right, we've got more news to get to here on your Tuesday. We're going to look at the WEF plan to ban meat. We're going to talk about that. Plus, one company has decided that, you know what, all this climate talk, all the using recycled bottles and all of this stuff for our products, we've tested it, we tried it, and it's been a crap show, and it's just not working. And so we're going to abandon that plan and go back to making the stuff that we used to. So all of you climate people out there, you're environmentalists, you probably might be a little upset about it. So we'll get to that. We will. All right, let's talk about this. Don't look now, but your meat is going to be much harder to come by in the coming months. The WEF plan to eliminate beef production, remove farmers, is coming to fruition, replacing wheat with bugs. So your flour that you're used to in your cooking ingredients may end up having bugs in it from now on.
All-purpose bugs.
All-purpose bugs. Because, as the World Economic Forum says, they're more sustainable. Bugs more sustainable to put that as flour rather than trying to get wheat, right? Let's use that. Before you say that this is just a conspiracy theory, just visit the WEF's website. Do a cursory search. You don't even have to dive deep like we do. You can just do like surface stuff and do a search for bugs if you like. You'll see tons of articles about the benefits of getting rid of meat and eating bugs, like this one, Burgers, Bugs, and the Shift to a New Way of Eating. You can learn how to do it. This is an article from 2019, and there's more recently. So Klaus Schwab and his merry band of globalists have been laying the groundwork for eliminating meat for over a decade now, and the plan is now coming together. See, they lay the groundwork. They infiltrate all of these cabinets around the world. They put their young World Economic Forum leaders like Justin Trudeau in place, and then they tell them what to do. And that's exactly what's happening.
It kind of, well, and you don't really have to like look far to see it, because like I'm a meat eater, and I just paid $17.99 a pound for meat that I used to get for way less than that, for like a New York strip. But I like to get really good meat. And so what they're going to do is price the meat out of your reach and then come in with this, hey, we've got this really great cheap solution.
Yeah, a meat alternative made with bugs, like some sort of a Beyond Meat product. That's why Bill Gates is so heavily invested in that stuff.
Yeah, and of course they want to do that, but they want to price it out because they don't want to eat bugs. They want you to eat bugs.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I know. You get these like celebrities on TV occasionally doing these like, well, I'm going to try bugs, like Nicole Kidman and so forth. And like, yeah, they're really good. They're not bad. They're not eating this stuff. Are you kidding me?
No.
Not at all. So not long after the WEF told us to start eating bugs, the media synced right up with them. It was amazing to watch the cacophony. Get that? Get it? The cacophony of locusts that then came in and immediately started doing the bidding of Klaus Schwab. So they put out the message, eat bugs is okay, and the mainstream media jumps all over it with all of these supportive articles, why eat bugs, an intro to edible insects with Joseph Yoon. Well, he'll walk you through how to do it. Here's The Guardian. If we want to save the planet, the future of food is insects. Here's the BBC. Could grasshoppers really replace beef? Of course they could. Keep going. Just roll through them. Mine aren't loading on my side. So here's Time Magazine. They're healthy. They're sustainable. So why don't humans eat more bugs? Eating insects could cut your environmental impact by more than 80%, says a Finnish study. Finland. Put a pin in that for a second. Forbes magazine. So this morning, Finland is rolling out new bread with 70 crushed crickets in each loaf. They call it a solution to the evils of animal agriculture. Man,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So the evils of animal agriculture. Watch this. Finland has made bread with crushed insects. There are 70 dried and ground crickets in each loaf. Crickets make the bread a good source of protein.
Wait. Can we pause this for a second? If we're talking about evil, we're going to kill 70 things instead of one? Does that math work out? Are we not supposed to think that these were living things? Like, it's right to have compassion for all living things, right?
No, because this is the argument that really upsets vegans when you point out to them that, hey, all of your lettuce and all of your greens, when you cleared that entire field and forest, killed all sorts of small animals, including
habitats
mice,
for snakes, mice,
rabbits.
Yeah.
Birds, everything.
Worms.
But don't tell that to them because they get really upset about it.
Okay.
It's an inconvenient
But
truth.
we're supposed to think that like 70 bugs in one bread is a better ethical trade-off than one.
Yeah, but we don't.
cow.
It's not even about ethics in
They don't
this.
have brains or feel pain.
Right. So it's not about ethics, right? It's not about the morality of it for this. It's about sustainability. They don't really care about the morality.
Okay, I have more questions about that.
So
but
I think the World
Like
Economic,
a million bugs to one rabbit, right?
Yeah, and the World Economic Forum, I don't think gives a rat's ass about the morality of these animals. What they care about is what they see as the CO2 emissions, the climate impact, the sustainability of which we've debunked here on the show at length.
Many times,
but it's worth doing again in this capacity. So let's play. This is Finland's new ad. This is the World Economic Forum boasting what Finland is doing about this bakery, hoping to roll out these insects. In the future, we might all eat a lot more insects. They require much less feed than traditional meats, it says. They also require much less land. And if we replace half the animal products we eat with insects or lab-grown meat, we'd free up an area 70 times the size of the UK. We'd also sustainably reduce emissions. Right. Would you eat a loaf of cricket bread? So there it is, cricket bread.
Okay, so we care about land use now because sustainable energy or reusable energy takes up acres and acres of land, whereas the way we produce our energy now takes up less than 1% of land use, especially in the United States. So
no, what they want is
land,
the land
bad if it's used for agriculture, which actually is in a conversation with, the environment. Land good if we put solar panels on it.
I guess, and make cricket bread with it, then it's fine. But also, it's all in a drive to the 15-minute city solution, right? So it's how can we use this land more sustainably by crowding as many people as we possibly can into this zone, and then forcing them to not eat meat or anything like that. And we'll just make sure that all of their food is shipped to them
Jason
locally.
Ian's in the chat says roly-poly stew. That's gross. That's like How to Eat Fried Worms. Remember that novel as a kid?
Yeah.
No.
Was that Judy Blume?
I don't think it was.
No, but I remember that one.
I don't think so.
But think about they're also, if they move this forward, you get rid of refrigeration. I think the sustainability of it would be much longer too. You wouldn't need a lot of these things to store it. So you could be going to the shelf. It's like buying rations basically because it's got bugs in it. What's
that's exactly
dry it out.
That's exactly what they're talking about. So here we go. Glad you provided me a segue. So, of course, there are those that call this a conspiracy theory, and they couldn't be more wrong. I mean, just look at the documents, of course, which show that these countries have already agreed to reduce or eliminate traditional agriculture, the transportation that David was just talking about of the meat, right, the refrigeration, all of that, the meat consumption in order to reach climate goals by 2030. So this is the C40's Cities Initiative. You can read about it, the future of urban consumption in a 1.5 degrees Celsius world. So their goal, of course, is 1.5 degrees Celsius, the reduction of that. You can read it, dive deeply into the argument. You can read through all of it. It's very dense. It's not fun reading, but it is eye-opening because of the things that they're proposing here. It's really, really troubling. And so you can read all about it on the c40.org, whatever, c40 website. But here, I just want to point this out. What science says the benefits of getting there. So if you go down to number 6 here, consumption categories that they're targeting: food, buildings, infrastructure, private transport, aviation, clothing, and reduced car ownership and other forms of transportation. And then broadening the city's efforts to combat climate emissions. So their goal, of course, is zero private vehicles. They don't want you transporting meat. They don't want you to have any meat, and they don't want you to transport it, David.
You know what this reminds me of is back in the day, I remember when CFLs, they were pushing CFLs. They had all this data. They put out these documents like that. If you buy CFL light bulbs, we're going to reduce everything by this. You got to buy CFLs, got to buy CFLs. Everybody did it. And guess what? It was worse for the environment because you can't dispose of them.
Right.
So it's like they put all this stuff up and yeah, it's like this is going to be the same damn thing. They have all these solutions, but when you really dig into the solutions, you find that they're bigger problems than they would be if they just left it the hell alone.
Like you're talking about the wind farms. I mean, I saw an article today, literally talking about the amount of turbines or the what do you call them? The spires on a windmill. I don't know what you call them. The whatever they're non-recyclable.
Props.
The props, they're non-recyclable. We've known this. We've talked about it. But I saw a field where they're just filled and they're covering them up. Basically, they can't recycle them. They're non-recyclable.
They're fiberglass. They're made out of fiberglass, which is like composites of what is it? There's different chemicals in it. I can't remember the chemicals, but catalyst and resin and all this other stuff that doesn't biodegrade either.
Great. That's fine.
Great for the environment. And they break fairly regularly. So there you go, windmills. So as part of the C40's initiative, numerous cities around the world, including London, New York, Toronto, Sydney, and Auckland, have set themselves an ambitious target of zero private vehicles, zero meat, and dairy consumption by the year 2030. Zero meat. These, as the Federalist writes, these 14 American cities have a target of banning meat by 2030 in America. So let's see if your city is on the list. Nearly 100 cities around the world have made up the organization, and its American members include Austin, Boston, Chicago, Houston, Los Angeles, Miami, New Orleans. Yeah,
that's like the home of barbecue.
The barbecue
like how in the hell could you?
Yeah. Austin, can you imagine? And Houston, New Orleans. Say goodbye to your jambalaya. Miami, New York City, Philadelphia. Hello, cheesesteaks. One of my favorite foods in the world. My hometown. You're not touching my cheesesteaks. Phoenix, Portland, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and Seattle. Oh, Los Angeles. I forgot Los Angeles. Yes. But, I mean...
Something just doesn't strike... So it's just not as appealing as like a Philly cheese, like cheese roach sandwich. You know, like it just doesn't...
cheese hopper? A cheese grasshopper sandwich?
Cheese hopper.
It'd have to be vegan cheese, too.
Ugh.
You can't use
Can you imagine? Oh, yeah. You can't go downtown to John's Roast Pork in South Philly, down by the IKEA, the best cheesesteak in Philadelphia, and eat that cheesesteak, and it has like crickets in it.
Would they
tell you
still,
to get the hell out of there.
Like cricket cheese?
Would they be getting rid of milk too? Milk and cheese, like that's part of this? Or
well, eventually. I mean, I haven't seen too much demonization of dairy yet, but how can you? I don't know. It's not my plan. Don't ask me.
So, according to the Federalist, 14 American cities are part of this global climate organization known as the C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group. They have the target by year 2030 of 0 kilograms of meat consumption, 0 of dairy, 3 new clothing items per person per year. That's all you're allowed to buy. 3 new clothing items per year per person. You would die. Zero private vehicles. And 1 short-hauled return flight, less than 1,500 kilometers every 3 years per person. So no real airline travel. And they're getting on board with this. So these cities, I mean, you think like this is a personal decision. No. Like Philadelphia International Airport, based on if you're a Philly resident, like you wouldn't be able to travel out of Philadelphia International Airport because you've already had one of these longer flights. Like, what the hell?
That is crazy.
But this is where we're going. And this is, of course, your social credit score. This is where where they are moving us towards with a digital ID and tracking all of this. And here's their reduction plan. So this is right from their website. As I was diving through the data today, I couldn't believe. So look at these numbers here, okay? They want to reduce in these cities, just pay attention, 44% on the left side of your screen for buildings and infrastructure. Look at this, 60% food reduction in your city. Private transport, down 39%. Clothing and textiles, 66%. Electronics, just down 33%. And aviation, down 55%. But the biggest one, by consumption, is food. So that, in the way that we do that, we replace them with bugs, we eliminate meat, we force you to eat Bill Gates' Beyond Meat fake food garbage. There's a woman.
There's going to be. I was going to say, there's going to be people like, was this cricket fed with organic trash, or is this a grass fed cricket, or
organic trash?
My question is, in these cities, is what because there'll be an exemption, and there'll probably be some kind of licensing to get an exemption, and I want to know how much that's going to be. Because, like I said,
carbon
there's
offset
no way
credit.
in hell the people pushing this, there's no way in hell the people pushing this want anything to do with it. This is for us, not for them.
They'll still go to the Caribbean or Hawaii. Yeah.
On their private jets. Yeah, it won't be commercial aviation, so they'll just take their private jets.
Right. We've already seen in Europe that some certain climate restrictions on planes don't apply to private jets. They're exempt.
Yeah. So Greenpeace co-founder Dr. Patrick Moore, has seen the light on this, and he's talking. So these consumption goals, right, of reducing the amount of food, reducing fossil fuels, reducing food consumption for these people is a death wish for people. Listen.
If we actually achieve net zero, at least 50% of the population would die of hunger and disease. And no doubt about it, because just one thing, which is nitrogen-based fertilizer, at least 50% of the population depends on nitrogen fertilizer for its existence today. There's no doubt about that. And there's people trying to ban it. And Netherlands and Sri Lanka have already made these kind of moves. And So it is truly a death wish in disguise, and the disguise is to save the earth.
Yeah, that is exactly the death wish. These net zero goals are insane. The goal of the C40, though, is to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, drop it by 1.5 degrees Celsius. You've heard John Kerry talking about that. That is the goal that they all talk about.
The monarchs talk about this.
Yeah, they're all focused on this 1.5, right? Even, so King Charles with his whole doomsday billboard thing that he's got, 1.5 degrees. If we don't do it by 2030, we're all going to die. Of course, they've been telling us this for 40 years, and that billions of people were going to die, and that hasn't happened. The opposite has happened. And what they're saying is, if you read from their website here, this is exactly what they're saying. To limit warming, this requires systemic change towards a net zero and resilient economy at an unprecedented scale and pace. A just transition is about leaving no one behind in this shift, protecting livelihoods, and maximizing the employment benefits of climate action. But so it's worth asking, who came up with this arbitrary 1.5 degrees Celsius target that John Kerry and Al Gore love to throw around and the monarchs love to throw around? And by the way, this entire C40 organization that's backed by Bill Clinton and Michael Bloomberg and all of these people love to throw around. Well, every one of you watching this show should pay attention to this. So you can use this in comments and arguments around the Thanksgiving dinner table when someone says, if we don't hit this climate goal by 2030, we're all going to die. 1.5 degrees Celsius. As Alex Epstein writes in his great book, I encourage all of you to read this great book called Fossil Future. He explains a goal of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees since the 1800s has no scientific basis whatsoever. The 1800s were a very cold time, the Little Ice Age, of course, and the 1 degree Celsius warming since then has coincided with the greatest improvement in human life in history, in large part due to fossil fuels. He says that the West, when people talk about 1.5 of warming as a catastrophic, it's even more absurd than it sounds, because it's not 1.5 degrees warming starting now. It's 1.5 degrees total since the 1800s, which means it's 0.5 degrees Celsius warmer than now, in a world where far more people die of cold than heat, by the way. So its warming is actually helping us. Go ahead, David.
Well, and it just makes it sound like they can get so many more people on board. It's like, if you do this, it's only this much we've got to change and everything's going to be perfect. It's like, it's such a small, in people's heads, they're like, oh, that's what we got to do. It's a marketing tactic. It just makes it sound like it's an easy thing to do if we all just do this one thing, and that's eat bugs and,
Right. And many climate researchers like Bjorn Lundberg and Michael Schellenberger have done research that shows that when capitalistic forces are allowed to take on any given thing, such as electricity, energy, these types of things, for instance, instead of using plastics, humans used to use turtle shells, where we would literally rip them off of turtles. That's not sustainable or humane, or wasn't even a great product, but we used it for certain things in life. Now we have plastics, and plastics are being demonized because it's making our lives too good, I guess. But there is innovation in plastics that does make them biodegradable. And we've shown you research here that show that modern plastics leach fewer chemicals than these shitty paper straws that we're replacing them with. So a lot of times humans take care of these things ourselves through innovation when it is allowed in a prosperous nation. So Germany and the United States have already had climate emissions peak. Did you know that? So how come those wealthy nations were allowed to prosper, industrialize, have their climate emissions peak, and then start to go down because of innovation? But China can't? But India can't?
No,
we need
Africa
to lecture
can't.
Africa. You cannot have your climate emissions peak in order to raise the prosperity of your people.
Well,
that's only for us.
And that's what Alex Epstein writes about in his book, is that in other words, when these people talk about reducing fossil fuels, aiming towards this 1 degree cooling plan, you're basically telling billions of poor people in these poor nations that they can't use fossil fuels to lift themselves up out of poverty, as we have done in the West. So you have to jump right to wind farms, which we've proven don't work for sustainability. It's absurd. In fact, we will be creating our own catastrophe by doing this. pushing people into starvation. It's genocide, quite honestly, and they want a global population decline so that they, of course, get what they want. It's all part of their plan. Has anyone stopped to ask if these net zero goals, eliminating farms and fossil fuels, will result in harm for the planet? Has anyone asked if these emissions from human beings are even responsible for warming? Professor Ian Plimer is Australia's best-known geologist. So see this on your screen here. They had him scheduled to give a speech in I think in the UK, and I think this was in the UK. Forgive me if I'm wrong here. And the hotel that was supposed to host it, they kept getting declined. Everywhere they were going to host his talk on the environment, to set up to give this speech, the hotels kept canceling on him, saying, we can't take him, we can't take him, we can't take him. He's the emeritus professor of earth sciences at the University of Melbourne. He's one of the best-known geologists in Australia. He is the best-known geologist in Australia. He's been canceled many times for asking Australia's government to prove what they're saying, but they can't do it. And they refuse to be able to actually give him the science about it. So here he explains how he's been canceled and how this unfolds. Watch.
Can you please show me that human emissions of carbon dioxide drive global warming? Now, it's a trick question. We'll come to that. They couldn't. This is a question that I've been asking scientists around the world for 25 years. I've asked journalists this question. I've asked politicians this question. It's no wonder I get cancelled, because no one can show from the scientific literature that human emissions of carbon dioxide drive global warming.
So who's behind the C40 initiative? And you might be wondering, of course, a group of globalists, Bill Clinton and Michael Bloomberg. It was founded in 2005, and some of the key players there who've donated lots of money to it and make it happen, part of this larger World Economic Forum plan. And you can go to their website and get your Just Transition Toolkit. So if you're one of these new cities that signed up for this and you want to move everyone away from meat, force them to start eating bugs, get off of their cars, sell their cars, only buy 3 pieces of clothing, you can get your Just Transition Toolkit and teach people how to do it. It's right there on their website. They encourage you to download it so you know how to talk to people in your community about stopping eating meat. And if you're part of the C40 initiative, you can hand that out to people. And of course, you can all learn how to retrofit your buildings. That's a big piece of this document. How to retrofit your buildings, create green jobs. That's in the document as well. And working towards creating these 15-minute cities where you won't need a car, you won't need farms. You'll have everything delivered right to your house in the palm of your hand within 15 minutes. You can walk anywhere in 15 minutes, and that's it. You have to get a credit or some sort of a voucher if you want to travel outside of the 15 minutes to go see grandma who lives in a whole other town. Have you reached your carbon credits cap this month? Sorry, you can't go see grandma. Their entire fear-mongering, of course, hinges on this 1.5 degrees garbage that we've just talked about. So maybe they should listen to, has anyone even asked the question about this? Is the Earth warming is the Earth warming beyond some kind of normal cycle? And is it actually warming at all? Or could it be cooling instead? And this is exactly Dr. Plimer's point that I hope everyone pays attention to. Watch.
We have been cooling down for the last 4,000 years. So if people say, oh, the planet's warming, well, it's all about when you start the measurements. If we look at the last 38 years, there has been no change in temperature. If we look in the last 150 years, we've had 3 warming periods and 3 cooling periods with a total warmth of about 0.6 degrees Celsius. Now, I wonder why it warms. I mean, 1850, what happened then? Oh, yes, that was the end of the Little Ice Age. Do you think it's going to warm or cool after a Little Ice Age? Of course it's going to warm. So if you start taking measurements from 1850 in the Industrial Revolution, we have been warming. If you take measurements from the medieval warming, we've been cooling. We've cooled about 5 degrees since then. If you take measurements from the Roman warming, we've cooled about 5 degrees. So as soon as someone tells you, oh, it's warming, the reply you give is, since when?
I hope everyone pays attention to that. So when anyone says to you,
simple.
I know, when someone ever says to you that we are experiencing warming, there is global warming. Our kids have global anxiety about, climate crisis. Get out there and pick up trash everywhere. Everyone should pick up trash, right? That helps. It helps beautify the neighborhood. Is it helping global warming? No. And is it actually warming? You can ask the question, from when? When is it actually warming? Oh, the medieval period, the Roman period? Just play that clip over and over to people around your Thanksgiving table when they want to bring that up.
Well, okay.
I love it. Let us know your thoughts on this. But hey, bugs are here. Look for it. Let me know in the comments below, and actually send me an email, clayton@redacted.inc. Feel free to email me, because that's where you get the newsletter from anyway. Let me know. Do you guys, and send me pictures. I know we've had viewers that have sent me pictures of where they've seen bug food in their grocery stores. I mean, you have to look at the labels now. It's in it. And you probably don't even know that you're eating it.
Yeah.
That's how terrifying this is.
It's mostly in
like
the
cricket flour
organic
and
section in the middle.
The cricket flour and organic. Well, even like right at the checkout counter. My daughter the other day sent me a photo. She was at some convenience store and they were checking out.
Yeah.
And like a set, like one of those 7-Eleven or something. And she's like, look, there, it was a Crickets or something.
Something like that. It was like a cricket Snickers. No thanks.
No, thank you.
The chat room is having too much fun with this like bug snack names, like cool cricket Doritos or something like that.
See, now I'm hungry.
Cockroach milk. I'm watching you guys.
I would love some Cool Ranch Doritos right now.
I still can't wait for the. I can't wait for the cricket cheese. I want to watch documentaries on the process of milking crickets, and then
Okay.
I want the cricket and a
cheese.
biscuit
That's what I'm
crackers.
all about.
When I was a kid, I used to go out in the morning. And milk the crickets. Get out there with my little tiny tweezers and have to milk the crickets every morning. Get that milk.
And then you will be treated like, you'll be treated poorly if you want to be a meat eater. Actually, I had this experience in a school mom's chat, because we were talking about this picnic that we had at our school. And they were saying, well, were the vegetarians upset that the meat was grilled on the same grill as the veggie burgers? And I was like, actually, I'm a meat eater and I don't like it, because I don't want seed oils seeping out of those patties, because they're made of synthetic materials, put on meat that does not have synthetic materials. No one gave a crap. They're like, oh no, we don't cater to meat. It's not you.
Hilarious.
This is not about you.
That's
this is
a great
only
point.
about the vegetarians.
That's hilarious. I hadn't even thought about that. And it was funny. You and I were talking to a friend, and she said, "Oh, I'm hungry. I want to get something to eat. What's on the grill?" She's like, I want to get like a veggie burger.
No, she's like, they're out of veggie burgers, and we both were like, so.
We both and I was like, oh, did we hurt her feelings? I hope not. But we were both like,
Her
good.
son is a vegetarian, she was trying to cater to her son, which I'm sensitive to. But the funny fact of the matter is that there's only one group we're choosing to be sensitive to, and that's the vegetarians, not the meat eaters. And as a meat eater, like I said, I don't want that synthetic on the food, and so, but they didn't care at all about that. So
here's your
I didn't get my feelings hurt too much. I just think it's a funny story.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got one more story we're going to get to here tonight. But before we do that, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps us. And also smash that like button. If you do that, that really helps us out in the algorithm and helps us to reach a larger audience, because they love to suppress what we do here. But during a live show, when you hit the algorithm, when you hit the like button, for some reason, maybe they haven't figured this out yet. I don't know. In YouTube's like algorithm stuff, they haven't figured this out yet. But when you hit the like button, it actually does push us further out into the into the stream. I don't know. Maybe they'll flip off that thing at some point. We'll keep it quiet. But anyway, please do it.
We've definitely flipped them off. So.
We definitely have. Yes, we have.
All right. Well, I want to tell you some stories now about companies that are realizing that climate change may just not be the business to be in. This is sort of a reaction to the story Clayton just did, where, these sort of nefarious and not well-intentioned initiatives to reach some nebulous climate goal. This is where companies think, okay, people want us to be greener. We're going to, do some initiatives, figure out how to make our product greener, and we're going to do it. But then they don't really do the math first. They just release these press releases, say what they're going to do, and then when they go and do the math, they're like, that's not going to work. That actually will make things worse. So, the climate activists, they just insist on like messing around first and then finding out later. For instance, we've talked to you about plastic straws, plastic bags, all of these, and sort of good intentions gone wrong that make things worse. Well, now we're going to give you a few more. For instance, we've also talked about how electric cars have more rare earth minerals than gas-powered cars, how paper straws and paper bags are worse for the planet, how electric cars cause more carbon emissions because of the power they require from water-intensive and sometimes coal-driven power plants. Well, today, 3 new examples of this happening and companies sort of pumping the brakes a little. So maybe there is hope for humanity yet. First one is Lego. Second one is Lufthansa. And the last one is Ford. So first, 2 years ago, Lego said that they would experiment with new material for their bricks. Now they have said, we can't do that. It actually would be worse for the environment if we do this. Here was their announcement in June of 2021. I'm going to talk over it. You can just watch what they're saying here is like, hey, look, here's some normal bricks, but this is made from recycled plastic, PET bottles. So what they did was take a bunch of recycled plastic and pulverize the crap out of it and then turn it into Lego bricks. At the time, they said we were having a problem with it not just being snappy enough, because if you've ever played with Lego, it's got to snap off easily. It's got to be pretty durable. And it's got to hurt your foot when you step on it in the middle of the night when your kids leave it out. The very specific needs, right, of Lego. Here is how Lego said that their sustainability journey would go. Can we just go right to the next slide? Is that 2014, we started loving the planet. We started hugging some trees. We started doing these things. We had our buildings. And then 2021, it says, we unveiled this new initiative where we're going to use recycled plastics. Well, now we can fast forward to 2023 and they say, can't do that. CEO Niels Christensen told the Financial Times that this recycled plastic bit would lead to higher carbon emissions over the product's lifetime and would have required basically a whole new factory. So that also would be worse for the planet to abandon old factories, build new ones, and then take these composite materials and turn them into new materials. He said in the early days, the belief was, the early days meaning 2021, the belief was that it was easier to find this magic material or this new material, but doesn't seem to be there. He says, we've tested hundreds and hundreds of materials. It's just not possible to find a material like that. Lego is made from plastic. That's kind of the way it's got to go. This is because when you take those flimsy plastic bottles that, you drink soda out of or what have you, you reinforce it into a Lego. It's a really heavy duty industrial process. It's just not as easy as all that. So they say they're going to keep looking. But for right now, they promised us 2 years. They can't do it. They're scrapping that idea. So instead, they'll plant some trees in Vietnam. So that's nice. In a similar vein,
Biden can visit them next year, right?
Yeah. But here's the thing, though. They found out that when you still step on these Legos, they hurt like hell.
The recycled plastic ones.
Yeah.
You think they
that
still
was the only test it passed. Probably. They had parents walk into the room and step on Legos and son of a well, that passed, but the clickiness didn't work.
Who amongst us has not had that experience of stepping on your kids' toys in the middle of the night? Lego. In a similar vein, the CEO of Lufthansa Airlines admitted that going green would require up to half of Germany's electricity. So not green at all then. He said this in response to this Refuel EU initiative. This is a mandate that the EU has rolled out that vehicles in the EU will use sustainable aviation fuel. We're calling that SAF. That's an acronym. Okay. And reduce practices that contribute to pollution by using this SAF with a minimum target of 70% used by 2050. Now, SAF, this sustainable aviation fuel, is synthetic fuel. This is something that they're trying to bait and switch us with, and I'm calling BS on it because we've shown you that synthetic fuels actually have a higher carbon footprint than fossil fuels. Here's a 2017 Princeton study we showed you a couple months ago. It showed that synthetic gas might burn cheaper inside a house, but it would increase CO2 emissions because it's hard to make. like recycled plastic material from other recycled plastic material. So now in Germany, they have said, well, we're going to roll back this ban on gas-powered cars and, this mandate that everyone drive EVs by a few more years. And in the meantime, everyone will have to use synthetic gas instead of traditionally farmed fossil fuels. Only that's worse. Now, the aviation industry is being told the same thing. You don't have to go electric. We know that wouldn't keep planes in the air, but use these synthetic fuels without any calculation of where do they come from? How do we get them? Well, the CEO of Lufthansa is saying, yeah, we would need to take all of them because it's so hard to make. They don't just come out of the ground. There would be so little of it. We would have to use fully half of all the electricity in Germany, he says. We'd need half of Germany's electricity to create enough of the fuels we'd need to keep flying. And he doesn't think that this climate minister is going to give him that. So it's not going to work. Speaking later at an industry event, he said this about decarbonizing travel. From today's point of view, it won't work to have even the availability of the quantities that are demanded of us, not to mention the high cost that in the end the passenger will have to bear. Because again, synthetic fuels have to be made. They're not taken from the ground. They're even more processed. And so there would be so little of it. It definitely wouldn't be for you. And it's harder on the environment. So here's an industry leader saying these climate policies, they're not going to work. We got to go back to the drawing board. So will the world listen? It does seem like they are because of these rolling back of EV mandates and politicians saying, I don't think I can set this in motion as early as we had hoped, or maybe not at all. And then some companies are just rolling back on their EV initiatives, and they're not necessarily saying why. Here's Ford today saying that it will pause construction of a $3.5 billion plant to build EV batteries in Michigan. But here's the explanation they gave. No explanation. We're not being specific about why. There are a number of considerations. We're not being specific about what they are. So they're not going to tell us. What we think it probably is that the plant was scheduled to open 3 years ago and employ 2,500 people. But the batteries would use this alternate chemistry from the nickel-rich batteries that dominate the U.S. market, according to the Financial Times. They cannot go as far on a single charge, but they cost less. I don't think anyone really wants to make either of those sacrifices. Ford says that because of this, they're going to lose $4.5 billion on its EV business this year alone. So these are just examples of how when you rush progress for the sake of the climate, you lose. Again, researchers have shown over and over again that climate emissions take care of themselves through the natural course of innovation. We have seen that in many industries. The U.S. and Germany have already peaked at climate emissions years ago. Yeah, go ahead, David.
I was going to say, except back in the, 80s, 90s, didn't we fix the ozone layer by getting rid of hairspray? Didn't that work?
And and styrofoam.
Right. It's all fixed. Yeah. All fixed now.
We completely fixed it.
Okay, yeah. Good.
Because you never hear the holes in the ozone layer ever anymore. Like they don't talk about it.
I think we covered that on the show. I think it healed it.
You don't hear about it because. Yeah, well, actually, it did help. Like the banning of the CFLs actually did help. Or CFCs, the chlorofluorocarbons, actually did help. I mean, it was one of those things where it's not every problem is a major problem, but sometimes it is, and that was one that can actually be looked at as a success.
Yeah.
That's why you don't hear about the hole in the ozone anymore, because it actually kind of repaired itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's great. All right. So, you don't want to feel too good about yourself when you campaign for paper straws or recycled Lego or synthetic fuel. The synthetic fuel is going to be a mess, you guys. We're going to hear about this a lot, and it's going to be a mess. The answer is somewhere, like the ozone answer, but it's not in those things.
Well, we've already had the disaster, of course, of corn and corn-based fuels, so we already know.
Oh, God. Yeah, we've talked all about that.
Ethanol.
Yeah. Ethanol is also a wreck, and it wrecks your car as well. So we'll let Kermit the Frog have the last word on this, is that it's not easy being green.
That's right.
That's all I have to say,
Easy
folks.
for him to say.
All right. Hey, we had some news this afternoon that we wanted to bring you before we go, which is the Canadian House Speaker has resigned. Of course, after inviting a Nazi SS officer to be honored in front of world leaders. So the Canadian House Speaker has now resigned. He is, of course, the fall guy for this. Make no mistake about it. Like he said, no, it was my decision alone to bring him. Right. As David Creighton reported yesterday, no, that's not at all what happened. But he will be the fall guy, and that's exactly what was. But here is the real guy that needs to resign. And I love this on Twitter. This is the guy. That's the guy that needs to resign.
Young man, take a look at yourself.
All right.
So that's a way to end the show.
You couldn't give it to Kermit. We had to give it to that guy.
Well,
that's a good one. That's a good one.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of our show. I should remind you that we have a community. We'd love for all of you to be a part of our great community. And what is the new name of it now? It's the Redacted Plus Club, right?
Yeah, so basically it's still joining the rebellion, but it's the Redacted Plus membership. So it's just called Redacted Plus membership. We removed the VIP part. So, and we've got some T-shirts that are going to be coming out today, and that we're launching some specifically for Redacted Plus members. So it's going to have your Redacted Plus logo on it, and then on the back say "Join the Rebellion." So those are exclusive for you guys. So we'll be posting those on Locals on the community later, maybe today even.
Awesome. Yeah, if you go to redacted.inc and you can join the rebellion, you can, support what we do here, support independent journalism. For the price of a cup of coffee once a month, you can support it. Again, our show is totally free. You don't have to support it if you don't want to. You can just subscribe on YouTube and Twitter and Rumble, and that's totally fine. But if you'd like to take that extra little step, again, we are not funded by billionaires. We are independent. And so are the journalists that we feature here on the show. They are independent, and we're able to give them voice in an increasingly censored environment. It's really, really difficult with all of these channels being banned on a regular basis, independent media being banned, because they see us as a threat. They see us as a threat to their narrative, and when we shine a light on it, we start to see cracks in their narrative. We start to see awareness. People are able to call out false flags. We're able to hopefully, help people in ways that we might not otherwise be able to. So thank you for supporting us. Go to redacted.inc and do that right there. Redacted.inc is the place to go. All right.
All right. Well, that does it for us tonight. Thank you for joining us. We will be back tomorrow. We're here every Monday through Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern, and the newsletter comes out every day that this show comes out, Monday through Thursday. So please do like, subscribe, share, and be here tomorrow. Thanks again, everybody. Good night.